In 1938, Elliot Ness had a problem. He was safety director in the city of Cleveland, Ohio, and a serial killer was at large. Headless bodies were found in lakes and rivers, under bridges, and in backyards. The victims often went unidentified. The killer always escaped undetected.
Hello, I'm Paul Ferrace, director of the USS Cod Submarine Memorial. But today we're not on the Cod channel, we're on the Roving Curator, whatever.
Wandering,
roving, today's wandering. And I'm here to talk about an interesting factoid from my own family's history. My fraternal great-grandmother and her husband, they immigrated from Italy. My great-grandfather was a sea sailor, I don't think he was a captain, but he sailed in sailing ships and steamers. And in fact, the story goes that when he decided to relocate out of Italy, out of Sicily, it was either Argentina or America, and America won out, thankfully. But anyway, they came to Cleveland. And I don't know much about my great-grandparents, Chiminos, but all I know is that my great-grandmother had an Italian candy store, pretty much right here where we are. We're kind of at 9th, East 9th and Orange Avenue. Now, in 100 years, a lot has changed. The main freeway, Orange Avenue, has been somewhat relocated. The freeway has erased a lot of it. But 100 years ago, right in this area, based on property maps, was my great-grandmother's house and storefront, an Italian candy store. Now, I have to say, my Italian ancestors weren't really candy people. But it was the Prohibition era, and being a candy store owner meant you had access to sugar. What was important about sugar? Well, sugar was an important ingredient for wine and liquor making. I will just say this, I'm not proud of the fact, but some of the distant elements of my family may have been mob adjacent. Well, that's a nice term, mob adjacent. They weren't directly involved, but they were somewhat in the periphery. And my father does recall, as a little boy, sitting in the storefront of his grandmother's Italian candy store, and occasionally guys would pull up in a big black car, get out, and they would come in and they would see my dad. They'd ruffle his hair, put a $5 bill in his shirt pocket. And for the late 20s, early 30s, $5 in a kid's pocket, that's a whole lot of money. My dad said, you of course would thank the guy, and my dad would look at the guy's face, his benefactor. And then my dad said, all too often, as it occurred, a few weeks later, that guy's picture would be in the newspaper as being a victim of a gun battle, or being shot on the street somewhere, or shot in a barber shop, or in an Italian restaurant, because there were the corn sugar wars, or the sugar wars. There were mob families that were warring over control of the bootleg liquor. Anyway, that is something we'll talk about a little bit later in another thing, because what I want to talk about is just a typical day of kids over grandma's house. You have the big pasta meal, then you go out, you want to have a lot of energy, you want to run that off, and they were playing baseball. And right about here, in the store, and by the way, we're talking about structures that were built probably in the 1860s, 1870s. As I understand it, my great-grandmother's house didn't have indoor plumbing, a bathtub or a toilet, until about the late 20s. So there would have been a bakhauzu, or a back house, or an outhouse somewhere in here. But anyway, so they're out to my dad, his brothers, and his cousins, Italians, they all get together. So they had a baseball game. And so this would have been probably about 1936, 37. They're a little older. Prohibition is over. Things have quieted down considerably. But anyway, so they're playing baseball out here. And one of them kind of really got a hold of the ball and sent it flying over the wooden fence and into the wooded ravine that borders the property. And that ravine, that train track, is still there. And of course that meant, you know, because it's depression, you got to go find the ball. So they drop their bats and gloves, and everybody goes through the fence or around it, and they're going to go find the ball. So they went over here and started looking in the overgrown weeds and shrubs and things for the baseball. And my second cousin, twice removed, I don't know, I'm not into cousin, I'm not really good at genealogy and cousins, but my second cousin, Charlie, what was it? Chuck, anyway, one of the cousins, digging through the shrubs, finds a canvas bag. And in this dramatic reenactment, found a bag, not unlike this one. And being a kid, it's going to be naturally curious. What did we find? Opens the bag, and there's a severed woman's leg in the bag. Apparently, this was a victim of the Cleveland torso murder. The torso murderer was a crazy guy that apparently was from a well-connected local family, and he would prey on alcoholics, prostitutes, poor people, kill them, and he got the name torso murder because they would find the torsos headless, armless, legless, floating in the Cuyahoga River, and very often body parts would be wrapped up in newspapers and thrown on the side of the road or the track, sometimes put into bags, sometimes suitcases. Yeah, talk about a macabre thing to have to open bags and suitcases to see if there were body parts in it. But anyway, so cousin Charlie Miniage, God bless him, he's gone on to his greater reward. Charlie Miniage opened this thing up, and there's a woman's leg. And of course, that pretty much ends the baseball game. And the police are summoned very quickly. And of course, the rotogravure, the newspaper photographers show up. Now the bag and the evidence have been removed to the coroner's office, but you know, there were 3 or 4 major dailies in Cleveland at that time. So I do know that somewhere in a newspaper archive is a picture of one of my ancestors. Now it could be my grandfather, it could be maybe my great uncle. I've heard varying accounts with different people. But one of my patriarchs is standing somewhere around here pointing, and of course the airbrush guys painted in a big X to mark where the leg was found. So that made the newspapers. Elliot Ness, the famous mob breaker, to be the was he chief of police, Evan, or
safety director?
Safety director, and. Now, officially, he never, quote, found the culprit, but they pretty much knew who it was. So, we don't have a woman's leg in here, but we do have a Navy blanket. But anyway, so yeah, that's the story. My family's connection to the infamous torso murders. Now, I see over here... maybe 100 years or 90 years later, not all that has changed. Is that a foot in there? No, that's just some dirt and leaves. Okay. Anyway, yeah, so here we are. That area kind of runs into Kingsbury Run. That's another big infamous name associated with the murders. Kingsbury Run murders, the Torso murderer, the Demon in the Dark. That apparently is now part of the RTA light rail. I see that public artwork over there. That's kind of interesting to look at. But yeah, I have a taste for candy. Anyway, so my great-grandmother, who I only know now literally as a rather large headstone in an old Catholic cemetery here. I hope she's not too angry. But we have some other stories that we'll be telling about my ancestors, and hopefully you'll sign in for that as well. So that's my story. Is that good enough, Evan? He's shaking his head yes. All right, let's get out of here before the police stop and want to know what's in the bag.